Hello, all. My name is Chris Russert, and I may have gotten picked last for pickleball in middle school, but I'm here hosting Constitution Day. Take that, Kevin. We are here to celebrate the Constitution Day. The document that your aunt misquotes on Facebook and doesn't really understand. The Constitution is something that we, the people, all of us as Americans, can come together to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish the Constitution of the United States of America. We as Americans have the opportunity, in the midst of a worldwide pandemic, of chaos all around us in 2020, to come together. There is no need to panic. All we need to do is sanitize, civically engage, and we'll be okay. Your voice, your vote, it matters.
So, Dr. Davis, how bad is it? How bad is the situation?
It depends on what you mean by bad, right? We are facing an election where we really don't know how many people are going to participate. It's unprecedented, it's unpredictable. Usually political scientists try to predict participation. We also have things like voter suppression happening, things like ID laws, making it harder for people in some states to vote. There are also voter purges that are wiping people off the rosters. So are they going to be able to vote? Do you show up to the polls and find out you are no longer registered to vote, right? We have a lot of things that we don't really know what's foreseeable in this election. And added to that, we don't know when there's going to be a result. So my assumption is that there are going to be a lot of angry people out there after the election if they don't know who wins. There are going to be people claiming that their side won. I wouldn't be surprised if you see some people take that to the extreme, right? Is there going to be political violence? The extreme. There are very passionate supporters of various candidates out there, and will they take some sort of action to make their views known? That's something we really don't know in this election.
Oh my God, extreme.
Extreme.
Here's some cake on that one. Really good. Oh my God. So, what happened before the pandemic to really sow the seeds for this? Like, was there something going on? Was it just the pandemic?
Well, I don't know if you realize this, but Donald Trump is sort of a controversial candidate. There's a lot of people who really passionately support Donald Trump. There are a lot of people who passionately do not support Donald Trump. We have seen some of that sort of conflict boil over in Black Lives Matter protest. We have seen some of it boil over in Trump this weekend here anyway. There was a big Trump flotilla of boats going out and supporting the president. We are seeing both sides again in conflict. That conflict was going on before the pandemic. The pandemic has A, given us another level of anxiety, and B, made things very unpredictable. And I guess C, made things like whether or not you wear a mask a political question, which has, again, led to more conflict. So we have a lot of conflict, partly over the candidates, partly over the issues, and then quite honestly about things that we shouldn't be conflicting over, like how to approach coronavirus.
We'll still be able to keep our democracy intact, right?
We will be able to keep our democracy intact if we know the rules in our particular state. If there really isn't a slowdown in getting, first of all, our ballots and then submitting our ballots. If there are not problems, I think conflict will be the theme of this election.
theme of this election? I
The
thought this
theme
was
of
about
this
democracy. Election.
democracy is conflictual, right? Sometimes more than others.
And what makes this election more conflictual than others? Is it just what you talked about with the the passionate supporters of both, or is there more to it?
There's passion. These elections are taking place in unprecedented times. We have social movements like Black Lives Matter out there. We have demonstrations in places like Portland that have gone on for a long time. We have competing protests in some cities. We have one party, the Republican Party, very, very critical of these movements. We have the Democrats sort of supporting them. We have seen some of the conflicts. In fact, we've seen violence come out of some of these. There's a lot of political, passion, political sort of intrigue happening right now. Did I mention the word conflict?
I think you did, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you did.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Do you think I just need to stay in here?
You should vote. So if you're going to vote by mail, you should do that. But if you have to go to your polling place, you could probably do that too. I mean, I'd wear a mask. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. My name is Andrew Trenne, and I am the student body president at Minnesota State University Mankato. Today, I've joined me a very special guest who knows a lot about voting and voter registration and everything to do with the election. And he'll be giving us on the scoop and all that. And I would like to introduce now the Secretary of State, Steve Simon.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, and if you want to say a little bit about yourself and how long you've been in this position. And
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Steve Simon, Minnesota Secretary of State, and I'm in my second term as Secretary of State. I was elected originally in 2014 and then reelected in 2018. I'm from Hopkins, Minnesota. That's where I'm coming to you from right now. That's where I grew up, went to Hopkins High School. And before I was in the Office of Secretary of State, I served for 10 years in the Minnesota House of Representatives representing Hopkins and St. Louis Park.
wow. Well, thank you for your years of service. And the one thing I wanted to get into right away was where can people register to vote, even in the time of COVID?
Yeah, so the easiest way to register to vote is by going to our website. And that website, which I'm going to mention a lot on this broadcast, is MN Votes. That's MN like Minnesota, votes, votes.org, mnvotes.org. Super simple, super easy. It'll take you like 5 minutes to do it.
And then will voters get like something in the mail to signify that they're actually registered?
Yeah, you'll get a postcard, basically a voter registration verification card in the mail, probably, a few days, maybe a week or so later after everything checks out. And you'll get that in the mail. You don't have to bring it anywhere. You don't have to keep it in your wallet or anything like that. It's just a verification that you were the person who registered to vote.
And then, so the other question I had that a lot of people have been wondering is, what do you need to register to vote? Like, what identification do you need?
Yeah, fortunately in Minnesota, it's a long list and a really very flexible menu of things. Really, when you zoom out for a minute, there are only two things you have to show to get registered to vote. You have to show that you are who you say you are, and you have to show that you live where you say you live. That's it. There's no mystery to it. And there's a long list of stuff you could use for both of those things. It doesn't have to be one specific thing. Many people use a driver's license, but maybe you live somewhere, including a college campus, where your driver's license doesn't match where you live. That happens all the time, totally common. So there are other things you can use. And it's a long list. If you're wondering what those things are, you can go to that website, mnvotes.org. But it's really simple. It's a very long, generous, forgiving list of things you can use to prove both of those things.
Wow. I know a lot of college students right now are asking about absentee ballots and absentee voting. And since a lot of college students will be listening, where do you request to get one and how?
Same exact place, mnvotes.org. You can order that ballot to come to you wherever you live, an apartment, a dorm, a house, whatever. And you can choose where you want to vote. Now, don't vote in two places. That's a felony. Please don't do that. But for example, if you are a student in Mankato and you want to claim as your residence for voting purposes, Mankato, you can vote there. If you're originally from, Minnetonka or Chaska or anywhere else, you can do the same there. Just don't do both, obviously. But you go to that website, mnvotes.org, and it will walk you through the steps to do that. Super easy. The ballot will come to you. You can vote with your feet up. You can vote while you're watching TV or folding laundry or anything you want. And that's really growing in popularity, particularly this year at a time of a pandemic.
And what are the deadlines to request one and to send it in?
So there really is no deadline to request one. You could technically request one right up into Election Day. I wouldn't recommend that given the time it takes to mail it to you and all the rest, but there's no formal deadline whatsoever. In terms of getting it back, this is very, very important. We have a new rule for this year and this year only. It's very on brand for 2020, which is a crazy kind of year. The rule this year and this year only is that you can postmark it as late as Election Day, which is Tuesday, November 3rd. You can pop it in the mail that day as long as it gets there 7 days later. So if you're comfortable, if you feel that 7-day cushion is enough, that 7 days to get from point A to point B is enough, you pop it in the mail and it will get to the address on the envelope in 7 days. Cool. Vote that way. But you can always vote a day early or a week early or even a month early. You can send that absentee ballot in. Depends on how long you think you'll need to get it in. But no Minnesotan will have less than 7 days to get it in. An automatic 7-day buffer built in for everybody.
Well, that sounds really cool. I'm glad that was put in place for this year, especially considering it's a presidential year. The other question is, and one big important thing of voting and our kind of electoral process is election judges or poll workers. Can you touch a little bit on that and how students can get involved in that or sign up for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you used both terms because they're thrown around a lot and they mean the same thing. They're interchangeable. Sometimes they're called election judges. Sometimes they're called poll workers. I use both. But whatever they are, we need a lot of them to put on an election. And in fact, we need 30,000 of them around Minnesota. So I just want to let everyone know this is a paid gig. It is not a volunteer job. It is paid, very much so. In fact, you even get paid for the 2 hours of training, and you can take the training online. You don't have to go somewhere, although I think you still can. So 2 hours of online training, you get paid for that. And then you're in the polling place during the day, and you get paid for that as well. And you're not limited by geography. If you're 18 and older, you're not limited by geography. So if you live in Mankato and you hear that they need people in St. Peter or Minneapolis or Duluth or anywhere, hey, if you're willing to travel, you can do it. So you're not tethered to your city or your county at all. You can go wherever. And if anyone's interested in learning more about that opportunity, again, paid job, the place to go is that same website, mnvotes.org. You can fill out an interest form. Or maybe, just as good a way is to contact a particular city, yours or another city, and say, hey, I live in Mankato, you call Mankato, or I live in Mankato and I'm calling St. Peter or Minneapolis or any other place where you think you want to help out, and you can do that. And believe me, they will be happy to get your call.
And do you know how important it is this year, especially for younger people, to become poll workers, election judges?
Super important, because typically most of our poll workers, or a large percentage of our poll workers, tend to be seniors. They tend to be retirees, at least disproportionately. And don't get me wrong, they do a fantastic job. But for obvious reasons, in a time of COVID, some pretty big chunk of them are probably going to take themselves out this time, just to be cautious, just to minimize risk. And so we got to replenish their ranks with people of all ages who feel comfortable going to the polling place. And by the way, from the standpoint of safety, I just want to reassure folks, we had an August primary election in Minnesota, which was a really good dress rehearsal for the general election. And we will have in the general election, just as we did in the primary, in all 3,000 polling places across Minnesota, we will have really high grade, almost surgical grade masks for all the election judges and poll workers. We will have regular grade masks for all voters who show up without one. We will have hand sanitizer and pumps and wipes. And then we have rules of the road in place that govern everything from the use of pens to the wipe down of the polling place surface for voters after their use. And so we really have worked very hard to make it a safe and clean place as well. I just want folks to know that.
And I guess on a similar topic, so from a voter who wants to go vote in person like normal, do you anticipate that taking longer this year, or longer or shorter even?
I think it could even be shorter. And the reason I say that is there's a huge appetite out there for voting from home, voting by mail, whatever you want to call it. A ton of people this year, for all the obvious reasons, are choosing that route. So in the primary that we had just in last August, a month ago, we, for the first time in memory, had a majority of voters not voting in the polling place. Only 40% of people who voted in that contest showed up physically to a polling place. 60% voted from home. Now, I don't know whether that exact ratio will hold, but all I can tell you is we're making a big dent in the number of people who show up in person. So if anything, I think there may be fewer voters who show up at the polling place on election day, but we don't want to risk it either way. We need poll workers to help keep order, help keep things flowing smoothly, and make sure the voting experience is a good one and a fast one.
So now there's another question that we've gotten a lot about from students, and that's about mail-in ballots. That's kind of the newer form this year, being more widely used. Are there deadlines for that as well, or and how can people get that ballot?
Well, mail-in is the same as absentee. I mean, what we're calling vote from home is basically that. It's mail-in or absentee. It goes by multiple names, but the idea is you don't have to go to a physical place and vote either on election day or before. You can have the ballot come to you and vote with your feet up at your own timetable. And there is no deadline. You could go, technically, you could ask for it right up into election day. I don't recommend that for obvious reasons, because it takes time to mail to you and all the rest, but there's no deadline. But go to mnvotes.org, say, I want to vote by mail, I want to vote absentee, same thing, and have that ballot sent to you at home, wherever you live. Super easy to do. It will take you 5 minutes if you're slow.
That's funny. So there's another kind of, and I know about this, and it's pretty unique. Some people are questioning, will my ballot be counted? Is there a process or a tool you have on your website that people can use to verify that?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially this year when so many people are choosing to vote from home, to use the mail to get their ballot back. Yeah, we have a tool on mnvotes.org. If you go mnvotes.org/track, it's a track my ballot feature, and you can do just that. You input your information and it will tell you the day that it arrived, not just that it's arrived, but the actual day. So you can have that peace of mind. So nobody listening here has to think, oh man, I'm going to throw this thing in the mailbox and just say a little prayer and kind of hope that it arrives on time. No. You can know with certainty not only that it arrived, but when it arrived. And that's huge peace of mind. I did that myself for the primary. I figured, well, let me try this out. I ought to. So I went to our own website, typed in my stuff, and it told me July 30th. I remember the date. July 30th, your ballot arrived. It has been processed. And that was huge peace of mind. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to wonder, did they get it? Did they not get it? I know. And anyone who's listening can know whether and when their ballot arrived.
Well, that's reassuring to the voter. I know I used the tool and I thought it was really unique. The other question is, and this has kind of been in the news about the Postal Service. So, for example, if the Postal Service were to go out of business or not have enough funding for the election, will ballots still be counted?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you've heard a lot of stories recently and reports about slowdowns at the Postal Service. They're not going to go out of business, but I think the biggest risk is, will there be some sort of slowdown? Will things take longer to get from point A to point B? And even if they do, that does not deter me from recommending that people consider strongly voting from home and using that option to vote by mail. And I'll tell you why, even if there are delays. Number one, we're telling people there are workarounds, and here are some of the workarounds. Number one, order the ballot now. Don't wait till October. Certainly not late October. Order it now as soon as you can. Even if you're not sure, order it, because you can always change your mind. So order the ballot. Number two, we're telling folks, regardless of the mail, that if you know who you're going to vote for earlier than Election Day, get that ballot in earlier. Not pressuring you. You can, of course, wait till Election Day. But if you're the kind of person who knows who you're going to vote for a week out, 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, get it in then. Don't wait until the end. Next, I want to remind people of that special rule in place just for 2020, one time only, where you can postmark it by November and you get it automatic by November 3rd, I should say, and you get an automatic 7-day cushion as long as it arrives by November 10th. Finally, I want to remind people that just because you get it by mail doesn't mean you have to return it by mail. It's just got to get to that address. If you want to hand deliver it to the elections office in Mankato or St. Peter or Minneapolis or wherever it is you live, you can do that, or you can give it to someone you know and trust to deliver it for you. But you don't have to use the US mail to get it back. You just got to get it back. So that should be reassuring to folks as well.
So when we get the election results this year, are we going to see a delay? I mean, you talk a lot about the 7-day postmarking. Will it take longer this year? Do you anticipate?
It will. So by definition, since the rule set up by the courts just for this year is that ballots can arrive as late as a week after the election and still be counted, that means by definition, we won't have 100% of the results until Tuesday, November 10th, not Election Day, Tuesday, November 3rd. However, that doesn't mean we're all going to be awaiting all the outcomes until then. And I'll tell you why I say that. I predict that in the vast majority of contests on the ballot, we're going to know the winners. We're going to know the outcomes and the results sooner rather than later. If not on election night, then shortly thereafter. And let me just give a hypothetical. So let's say on election night, all the stuff that we have on election night, both the in-person and the vote from home or the absentee, let's say you combine them all, and we've determined that candidate A is ahead of candidate B by 1,000 votes. And let's say that either that night or very shortly thereafter, we can also tell you we're still waiting for 700 ballots to come in. We don't know whether they're going to come Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the following Tuesday, but 700 are going to be dribbling in over the course of the next 7 days. Well, that's an example of a race that you can call, right? Candidate A is ahead by 1,000. We know there are only 700 left to count. So we know that by definition, she has won. We don't know whether she's won by a lot or a little, but mathematically, we know that she's the winner. I think most contests are going to be like that on election night, and not the kind that will rely on us getting the absolute last vote in a week later. That's my prediction. So we'll see what happens, but we'll have the ability to give more information than just, hey, here's the number of votes we've counted. We'll have some idea sooner rather than later about how many are left to count.
And then, so I have to ask, unfortunately, because, we're in a different 2020, right, is the different year. And there's a lot of mistrust about voting this year. Can we trust the results? Can we trust, obviously there's a lot of things in place to trust our ballot getting there, but are we able to trust the results at the end?
Yes. In Minnesota, we have multiple levels of security and multiple levels of access and transparency. So election judges from both major political parties will be ever watchful at the polling place and otherwise. All of the results are subject to a process called the canvassing process, where individual counties have to certify certain things. And then after that, the counties do a post-election audit, and our office does what's called a post-election review, where we will go into certain precincts that are chosen at random and do a deep dive where we pick a particular contest and we count all the ballots and we reconcile them. Bottom line is, yes, you can trust the results. And by the way, Minnesota is a paper ballot state. We're not like some other states where it's all done electronically. You vote on pen and paper on a piece of paper, which means you have something you can touch and feel and see, an actual paper trail, so that if anyone has a hunch or a bad vibe or a bad feeling that something weird is going on, you have something you can touch and feel and see and look at. It's not kind of lost in a database somewhere, and that should give people a lot of peace of mind.
And on a similar note, and you may have already touched upon it, but where it's been in the news as well, but voting twice. So if, for example, if someone votes through absentee and then goes to the poll place, what's the precautions there to ensure everyone votes once?
Yeah, for a lot of reasons, both high tech and low tech, that ballot's going to be flagged. So if a person votes absentee and then shows up at the polling place, that will literally be flagged with the words or the letters AB next to their name on the sign-in or on the roster. So you'll know if that has happened. So double voting is also something that we catch across state lines. We have a partnership with other states where if a Minnesotan thinks they're being clever and they try to vote in South Dakota, we're going to catch that too, because we trade lists and we can nail the folks who are trying to do that. It's very rare. Even attempts at doing that are extremely rare, but we're going to catch it if it happens.
So again, with 2020 being a really weird year and the pandemic and everything happening, is this the new norm? Are we going to see mail-in ballots and /absentee ballots be more common and less poll going in person voting?
I think so. I think the history in Minnesota and elsewhere is that once people get a taste of that method of voting, they don't always want to go back. Some do, some don't. But once people understand that the rule is, and has been for a long time, by the way, that you can order a ballot to come to you at home, vote with your feet up, vote while you're watching TV or folding laundry or eating breakfast, do your own Google research on the candidates or whatever on your own timetable, people tend to like that. That's not to say people won't go back, but I think a number of people will be converted to that way of voting. That's been the experience nationally and in Minnesota. So I think it is the new normal that people will have discovered and will enjoy voting from home.
And then on a last note, what other resources should voters be aware of? What else do you provide as a Secretary of State to help voters not only educate themselves, if you have those, but also to help their friends vote? Because I know that's a big struggle right now, is getting other people to vote and register to vote.
Right. Well, if you go to the website mnvotes.org, one feature that I like that I think helps a lot of people out is a My Ballot feature. It's called My Ballot. And that's simply what it sounds like. You type in your address and it'll tell you what is on your ballot. I hear from a ton of people all the time who say, look, the presidential race is an obvious one. Okay, we all know that's on the ballot. But people will say, geez, I don't have time to track this stuff. I don't know, am I voting even for state senate this year or county commissioner or school board? I mean, what are these contests here? And so if you don't know, most people don't know all those contests, just type in your address and it'll say, yep, you live here. Here's what's on your ballot. Here's not just the offices, but the candidates. And there are links to the website of those candidates, if they have a website, so you can look at the candidates in their own words. So that's one particularly important feature. In terms of getting other people to vote, I would just say that my experience is that people happily discover that there's less there than meets the eye. They think it's more complicated than it is, which is better than the reverse, right? People think registering to vote is some complicated, complex thing. And then you go to mnvotes.org and you're like, that's it? Oh, I didn't know it was that easy. Or ordering a ballot to come to you. Oh, that's it? I didn't realize it was that simple, but it is. So that website is a really good resource. And just trying to take the mystery out of it and tell people, look, it's simpler than you think, not more complicated. It's less complicated than you think. And so just tipping people off to the easiness of it, the simplicity of it, I think is half the battle.
Well, again, I thank you for your time today. And is there anything else you wanted to wrap up and just say before we ended the interview at all?
Yeah, I just want to urge people to get out and vote. Doesn't matter who you vote for, which contest you vote for, just get out there and make your voice heard, especially in a high stakes year like this. It's not just about the presidential election. It's everything up and down the ballot. Look, people get elected to stuff, whatever the stuff is, president, school board, you name it. And what they do or fail to do once they get there has real downstream effects on all of us. So this isn't just some good deed. This isn't a blood drive where it's like, do this kind, selfless thing for the good of others. There's an aspect of that, of course, because it helps the whole community, but it's also in everyone's own personal self-interest to vote as well. So it's easy to go to mnvotes.org, find out where to vote, how to register to vote. It's quick, it's easy, it's simple. You'll be glad you did it.
Well, thank you for your time today. I appreciate you spending time with someone, a young person like me, and helping me educate my peers on how to vote. So I do appreciate your time.
My pleasure, and good luck with the school year, too.
Yeah, the situation with our democracy is sort of crazy. Life is sort of crazy right now. But there have been so many times where we've been able to make this work. Math teachers doing lessons on TikTok. We did brunch over Zoom. Virtual concert, all this thing, we can make it work. But it is on us. We have to take the actions necessary to preserve this sacred institution so it can work for us to make our voices heard in our system.